Hello, hello. It looks like we are live. I have one person joined. Good morning. Welcome, everybody. I did remember to paywall this live so that I will just be talking to paid subscribers this morning and not to the entire group. And that's great because it means that we will not have random people jumping on who are like, hey, what's fasting? That's kind of how it felt last week. And I felt like I had to answer a lot of questions that were not, that were like way too basic for you guys, my paid subscribers. So I think that this live is going to go a lot better just because it's just paid subscribers and I can just focus on your questions. So I have a few topics that I'm going to discuss and some reader questions. And then after I get through each topic, I'm going to just ask you to write any follow-up questions, but also anytime during this live, feel free to type a message into the message box. And yeah, that's really the point of these is for me to interact with you guys and answer any questions that you may have. So welcome. Here are the topics that I have planned for this morning. So I want to go through the 72-hour fast, and I want to kind of go over what you guys are going to expect each day. So the 72-hour obviously has a few more challenges than if you've done the 36, but you might remember me saying that it's 90% mental. So it's mostly in your head. A little bit of the difficulty of the fast might be how you feel. And like I've said before, charcoal can help with that, especially if you feel a little headachy, a little achy, just not as full of energy as you like. That is probably a sign that toxins are being released. So increase your charcoal intake. But in general, what you're going to struggle with is not so much sorry, I'm getting a bunch of notifications here, is not so much how you feel, but just in your mind and missing food and wanting the comfort and things like that. So that's what I want to go through is what to expect each day during the 72-hour fast. I have some book recommendations for you guys that I want to go through just because some people really find that either reading a book about fasting or listening to a book about fasting or some podcasts really help you to be able to get through the fast. So, book recommendations. I have a reader question that I'm going to answer about probiotics versus prebiotics. I had a reader question about how to deal with family members that they're unsure about what you're doing. They're unsure if the 72-hour fast is safe. So I wanted to answer that question. I also wanted to give you guys some directions about refeeding and also directions about how you're going to eat for the rest of the week. And then lastly, I want to just talk about how to become more intuitive when it comes to eating and how the 72-hour fast allows you to become more of an intuitive person in general about eating and about feeling full and all those kinds of things. So yeah, that's just kind of my outline for what I want to talk about this morning. And if you, like I said, if you have any questions, go ahead and just type them straight in. So, and I just had a few more people jump on. So let me just say really quick, we're going to be talking about what to expect each day during the fast, book recommendations, prebiotics versus probiotics, how to deal with family members who are unsure, refeeding reminders, and learning to become more intuitive. So that's what I have on the docket today. So let's just get started with that. The first thing I just wanted to say is that I think one of the things that might help you the most just to get through this fast in your head, since the psychological part is the hardest, just knowing, I want to tell you at the outset that you will have an incredible sense of accomplishment when you get to Wednesday evening. And that is, it's just such a great feeling to know that you have that level of self-control. And self-control it's a virtue. I know that our society doesn't necessarily see it that way anymore because it's all about like, just like tap into do whatever you feel like or whatever. But self-control is a virtue. And when you are able to make it 72 hours with food, you have just really honed in that skill of self-control. So So when you're just struggling with this in the next 3 days and you're like, why am I doing this? Just keep that in mind, keep the end goal in mind, that you are just going to have an incredible feeling of agency when you make it to the 72 hours. Sorry, I'm always like adjusting my camera and feeling like it looks weird. Okay, so that made my face look weird. What on earth? Okay, anyway, yeah, some reason my husband too was like, sometimes it doesn't look like you on camera. And I'm like, I don't know. Sure, everybody can hear me okay. It's telling me my internet connection is unstable. Wow, I'm just having all kinds of trouble here. Sorry, guys. Um, I just got a little message that said my internet connection is unstable, so sorry about that. Um, if you can hear me okay, can you just put a little thumbs up in the message bar, and that way I know that everything's working correctly? That would be great. Okay, so the thing that I love about being able to do fasting is that you get to have a renewed sense of your own agency. Um, and so a lot of times health things can leave you, okay, good, Sarah, I'm glad you can hear me. Health problems can leave you feeling really powerless, and you feel like something happened to you um, outside of your control, and like this disease happened to you, or being overweight happened to you, or something happened to you, and you don't know what to do about it. And the thing I love about fasting is it gives you back the agency over your health. It's something that you can do that has incredible benefits for your health, and it doesn't involve going on a lot of medications for life. It doesn't involve spending a lot of money. um, it's this positive thing that you can do for your health, and puts you back in control, and it lets you figure out how strong you are. And I would really encourage you, especially if you're like a mom of young kids, but I mean, I think all of us are probably living with other people. I don't think anyone's living alone. To make an effort not to be snippy with the people that you live with. um, and just because you don't want to take out, if you're feeling hungry and you're feeling a little crabby, you don't want to take that out on your family members. And to go back to growing in your self control, um, if you are able to stay cheerful and positive and not feel sorry for yourself during the fast and not get snippy, then that's just your self control. It's just going to be through the roof. So make an effort to do that. And also, for those of you who might be dealing with family members who are like, I'm not really sure if like they're not sure what to think about your fasting, if you stay cheerful and you make it a positive time for everybody, then they're much more likely to get on board. So let me now go through what to expect for the next 3 days and some tips for you guys. And I hope I don't sound like a broken record, but I just want to say one more time that the hardest part about making it through the fast is the mental game and not the physical game. So 90% of it is just getting the right mindset. Um, so let's start with tonight. So tonight, when it's dinner and you miss dinner, I think that you're going to find it's a lot harder in your head than it was when you did the 36 or 48-hour fast. And the reason why is because whenever you did that in the past, you were always able to say, yes, I'm missing dinner with my family tonight, but I get to eat tomorrow. So it just didn't feel that bad. And so Monday night is usually hard, I find, because Wednesday seems so far away. So you don't get to say, I like to eat tomorrow. So really what you want to do for today and tonight is that you want to stay out of your head. Like, don't overthink it. Really stay busy. Make sure that you're distracted and you're not counting the hours till the next time that you get to eat. And you're not just don't be thinking about food and thinking about when you get to eat next. Just be doing the next thing and stay really busy. So I'm just curious if you guys could go ahead and write in the chat bar, how many of you are planning to sit down with your family for the evening meals the next three? It's actually just 2 evening meals. You're just going to miss Monday night and Tuesday night because you get to eat on Wednesday night. So how many of you plan to sit down with your family Monday and Tuesday, tonight and Tuesday, and how many of you plan to like go hide out? So if you could just type that in the message, you just type one word or 2 words or whatever. I'm just curious what you guys are thinking. I normally sit down with my family and just sip on some water. when I'm fasting, but I don't always do that because sometimes kids are going to different sports events and different things, and if it's just hubby and me, he'll be like, "Oh, I'll just heat up some leftovers and you can go do your thing." Okay, so Diana says that she's sitting with them. Okay, yeah. And I found that I have no problem doing that. And Sarah is going to sit down with her family too. And Elissa is going to sit down because she has little kids. Oh, and Edith's husband's fasting with her. Okay, that's really cool. And Tammy says, I'll be away and hubby will heat up leftovers. Yep. So either way, that works. Yeah, that's so cool, Ida, that you have your husband on board. Awesome. Way to go. But way to go for you. Um, yeah. So yeah, either way works. This is okay. So Sean's a widow and she's going to stay busy reading. Awesome job, Sean. Um, so one thing that I have sometimes done if I have like extra time or I'm out and about anyway, this is totally optional, but I will go to a health food store and I will buy myself a fancy bottle of sparkling water just because I'm not eating for 3 days and I'm saving a lot of money. So I really like this fancy sparkling water called Gerald Steiner. But there's other fancy brands, whatever you want. It comes in a glass bottle. If you're local, we can get it from either Co-op or Rosar's. Huckleberries has it too, but I just love this Gerald Steiner water, and I'll save it for dinner time. And so when everybody sits down and eats, I pour my Gerald Steiner into like an actual wine glass, this sparkling water, and I just really enjoy it. So I sit there and drink my Gerald Steiner while everyone else is eating. It just gives me something to put into my mouth. And like I said, just have a really cheerful attitude. Oh, Diana loves that water too. It just really does taste good. It has dissolved magnesium in it, which actually gets into your cells even better than taking a magnesium supplement. But just remember to stay really cheerful and upbeat with your family and really positive, and don't be like, oh, poor me, and everything. And staying cheerful and positive on the outside, even if you don't feel like it will, your feelings will follow you and come along. Okay, so here's some advice for Tuesday and Wednesday. Um, it is so much more fun to plan meals when you're hungry. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed that, but you might want to do this. Oh, let me just stop real quick and see what Julie wrote. My husband respects my fasting and usually eats by himself because we have individual schedules. Works great. So you might not want to do this today. Oh, Sean says you can order a case of Gerald Steiner from the Co-op and you get a discount. Thank you for that tip, Sean. So the Co-op, if you're not local, the Co-op is our local health food store. And I bet that those of you who live in cities could do that from like Sprouts and Whole Foods and Natural Grocers and those other options that you guys have. But you might not want to meal plan today just because you're going to start thinking about food and food seems so far away. But once you get to tomorrow, you're going to be able to say to yourself, I'm hungry and I'm kind of uncomfortable, but I get to eat tomorrow. That's what you'll be able to say. So it might be kind of fun to do some meal planning and to start to think about what you're going to eat for the rest of the week. And even, I haven't done this in a while, but I used to sit down and meal plan for an entire month. And sometimes that works so much better than doing the meal plan for a week because you get out all your cookbooks and you're in the groove and you're thinking about it. So it's just something to think about for tomorrow and Wednesday, that you'll be hungry and food will sound really good, and it might be a really fun time to do a bunch of meal planning. So that's just a tip. Okay, so Tuesday is kind of the middle of your 72-hour fast, and it's a day that might kind of drag on. So I really recommend spending some time in nature. Now, if you're local here, it's like really gross outside today. It's like cloudy, and there's some like, I think there was some sleet coming down a minute ago. So I don't know which everybody's weather situation is like, but no matter what your weather situation is like, just get some boots and a raincoat on and bundle up and go out in nature. And this applies to whether or not, this applies to everybody. You might be like, well, I'm not one of those like super outdoorsy, like camping, backpacking people. Well, this applies to you even more because you need to make an effort to get out in nature and to be breathing in that oxygen from the forest, and to sit on a log so that your hands are actually touching the earth. If you sit on a log, our shoes are rubber soled, so we don't really get any kind of like the exchange of electrons that we need, so you need to do some grounding, and you just need to have a break from EMF and Wi-Fi radiation. And there's just something about getting into nature that's so incredibly healing. And so it's really great when you're healing on the inside from doing fasting, and then you get out in nature, and I promise you it's going to rejuvenate you like you didn't even know was possible. So so Kaya, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Kaya, but he or she, and because I'm not sure which name that is, just finished a 90-hour water fast now, started Thursday evening, had a problem to pray about, and fasting seemed the right thing to add, and felt fantastic, not even hungry. Thank you for all the tips and encouragement. I love that, Kaya. That is so, so wonderful. Yeah, so you brought up kind of an interesting question that I didn't plan to talk about, but I think I'll just mention it really briefly. Sometimes people feel hesitant about fasting for health because they think, are we supposed to be, is it fasting only more of like a spiritual kind of a thing? And they're really doing it for health. So then they don't want to pretend that it's for prayer and fasting. So just kind of the way that I deal with that is that I'm like very upfront with myself and with my family and with God that I am doing this for health. And so I wouldn't pretend like that is really my motive that I'm doing it for. So I wouldn't pretend like the motive is actually for prayer and fasting. I just think there's different motives and there's different reasons to do things. But that said, that doesn't make prayer illegal. You know what I'm saying? So like if you are out in the woods and you do feel like you have a burden on your heart, then pray about it. um yeah, so that's kind of how I feel about that. So Greg said he bested my 1 mile swim time this morning, even though I began the fast last evening. Yeah, so once you are fat adapted, and what that means is that your cells are actually readily able to use either glucose or fat, then you can do things like that. You'll be able to like bikers and professional athletes will use a state of ketosis to be able to break records. But it does take a while to become fat adapted, and the machinery in your cells, which burns fat, actually has to be upgraded. And there's just a number of mechanisms that need to happen in order for you to switch. And some estimates say it can take people up to 6 weeks to become fat adapted. And so that's why I don't normally recommend a lot of heavy exercise while you're fasting, because your body just is more glucose dependent. But yeah, once you swing to being fat adapted, then people will do like bike races and, like marathons and stuff like that. And they like it because you have so much more fat fuel on your body than anybody has liver glycogen, which is liver glycogen is kind of like your refrigerator. It's like the glucose that's ready to go as soon as you finish up that 1 teaspoon that's in your blood. And then, but when it comes to your fat stores, you have months of them. Even a person who's a healthy weight that doesn't need to lose weight usually has a couple months of fat storage, meaning they could not eat for 2 months before they'd starve to death. So that gives your body all kinds of fuel that's just readily available on hand, Greg. So that's probably why you did so well, and congratulations on your 1 mile swim time. That's super cool. So yeah, those are kind of my tips for Tuesday and Wednesday, is to plan some meals and to go out into the woods and get some nature time. It's just gonna feel amazing. Well, I think that sometimes we don't realize how negatively affected we are by things like EMF radiation and Wi-Fi radiation and breathing indoor air, until we actually get outside and touch the ground and have sunlight in our eyes and breathe forest air and all of those good things that it does to us. It's also just, well, I've found mentally that when I've done things like that and cleared my mind, I've been able to like solve problems that I was sort of working on in the back of my head, but I wasn't able to find the solution to. So yeah, it's really good to do that. So let me just look at my outline here real quick. Let me really quick go over some book recommendations for you guys, because one of the things that's the most motivating to do while you're fasting is to be either reading a book, listening to a book, listening to a podcast or YouTube video about what's happening in your body. Because once you know what's happening in your body, you are really motivated to keep going. So I recommended last week a book called The Intermittent Fasting Revolution. That's by Dr. Mark Mattson. And one of you guys messaged me and said, as soon as I recommended it, you went and bought it and started reading it, and you're really enjoying it. Yeah, I would say that would be my top pick for a book if what you're looking for is really well-researched scientific information into the benefits of fasting. So Dr. Mark Mattson, I would say he is one of the top researchers in the world about the benefits of intermittent fasting. And his book is somewhat easy to understand. It's dense. It's not like beach reading, but it was written so that the average person could glean from it too. So I would really recommend that one if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for something kind of more light and inspirational, I would recommend Fast Feast Repeat by Jen Stevens. Now, she's not going to talk about extended fasting at all in her book. So she wouldn't cover the benefits of the 72 hour, but she is just more about like intermittent fasting in general, benefits of it. And it's very easy to read, very motivational, doesn't require too much brain power. But still full of good information. So it kind of just depends on your personality and the kind of book that you're looking for. Another thing that you guys might really enjoy is if you go to your podcast app, Jen Stevens has a podcast that's just called Intermittent Fasting Stories. And then she just interviews people who really benefited from intermittent fasting. I really like that podcast. I've listened to probably hundreds. I mean, she has like 400 episodes, and I've listened to a lot of them. And I did that more like 3 years ago when I was first doing intermittent fasting. I would listen to one like every single day. My personal recommendation is that there's a way when you're in the Substack app to order the episodes so it does the oldest episode first. So like it starts with episode 1 instead of the latest. That's not the default, because podcasts were, the app was more made for like a news podcast, so that you'd want to have the most recent one at the top. But in the case of this podcast, I really found that her earliest episodes are her best. And it's because they're more foundational. So you go back to episode 1, and then if you kind of work your way through episode 2, episode 3, listen to it that way. I've just found it's a lot more beneficial. And even, I mean, you guys know a lot of the basics from reading my Substack, but I still just think that those early episodes are just better. And I feel like with her latest episodes, I haven't listened for a while, but her latest ones, they tend to be more of like chit-chatty, just about random things that are going on in these people's lives, and not as much about sticking with fasting. But I'm sure any of the episodes that you pick will be great. I really would recommend the video by Mindy Pels that I linked to in the email that I sent you guys on Wednesday, where there was that little countdown, and I was like, 3 days till we begin our 72-hour fast. If you scroll to the very bottom of that email, I linked to one of Mindy Pels' videos, and that one is just super duper. It's not too long. If I remember correctly, 10 minutes, 15 minutes or something like that. But she just does such a great job of going through the science of specifically the 72-hour fast and all the benefits you're going to get from that. So give that a listen sometime over the next couple of days if you're feeling unmotivated, or you need a little pick me up. That's the video to listen to. I do want to give you guys a word of caution. If you just go onto YouTube and you type in fasting, you're going to be you're going to find some videos that are hit or miss. And right away, you're going to find the video that someone is going to tell you that fasting is bad for you and you're going to eat your muscles and probably die tomorrow or whatever. So just be careful about what you listen to. And, it's not that fasting itself is so controversial. It's that every single thing that anybody could ever say about health is controversial. I mean, even things that you wouldn't think are controversial. So you're going to just find all kinds of random things on the internet. Like eating butter is controversial, eating meat is controversial, eating salt, eating, I don't know, going for a walk. People will be like, don't do cardio. You should only do weightlifting or whatever, like every single thing that anyone could say, you're going to find someone saying the opposite. So just be careful that you don't run across some fasting haters, and then they're going to steal your joy. But I do have to say, like, whenever I come across fasting haters and they say things and they're like, fasting ruins women's hormones and it reduces muscle mass and blah, blah, blah. I just always remind them that Jason Fung has over 30,000 clients that have joined his fasting method. He trains coaches and he tracks their markers such as women's hormones, muscle mass, all that kind of stuff. And so he has the data, the real-time data that instead of it ruining women's hormones, it actually really fixes a lot of hormonal problems. And that's just because high insulin has a downstream negative effect. In fact, if you were to go to PubMed and type in PCOS, which stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome, which perhaps close to 1 in 4 women have, and you type in insulin, you can find hundreds of articles about how high insulin causes polycystic ovarian syndrome. So that's just an example of how high insulin wrecks women's hormones. So anyway, just watch out for the haters. So Diana said, this is my first time doing a 72-hour fast. I'm only doing it because I know I'm not alone in this. Thank you. Praying for us all to be successful. Diana, I think there are a lot of people on this call right now and just in the Substack in general that would not be doing this if it weren't going on as a group. And that's just kind of how humans work. We do things so much better when we do them in groups, and we need encouragement. And I know that if I had not had Jason Fung, he was my encourager, even though it wasn't personal. I didn't get to talk to him, but just through books and podcasts. If I had not had him, I would have never fasted. I would have never done my alternate day fasting. Never in a million years would I have thought that I could just eat every other day, and that would have been something that would be good for me, that it would be sustainable, that it would help my health. Of course, it did give me all these great health benefits. But if someone had not led me to do that, I would have never done that. And so then that made me realize, when I thought about starting this Substack, that I have to help other people, because if they're not going to, other people just aren't going to do this unless they have encouragement. So Ida said, speaking of sun in your eyes, been wondering if the adrenal cocktail is as effective if you don't get the sun in your eyes. Should it only be taken once the sun comes up and out? So that's a super great question, Ida. And if you guys are not familiar with the adrenal cocktail, it is something that I have recommended in the past. It is Redmond real salt. It's 1/4 teaspoon of Redmond real salt. It's mixed with 3/4 of a teaspoon of cream of tartar, which is a source of potassium. And it is mixed in a cup of water, and you take it with vitamin C. I used to always recommend whole food vitamin C, and then I did more research and I realized that you can do just regular vitamin C is fine too. So I used to recommend that all the time, and I stopped recommending it as much while people are fasting, because people started to report to me that they felt like the adrenal cocktail was making them hungry. And you know how I'm a big fan of the clean fast, because I don't want you to have any taste in your mouth that make your brain think that you're going to have food. And so for some people, because the cream of tartar is kind of sour, I think that their brain associated it with lemon flavor or some kind of food coming in. And so I just kind of stopped recommending it, and I felt that maybe the salt would be enough for people's adrenals. But so your adrenal glands are these two tiny little glands that sit right on top of your kidneys, and they can become stressed. And some people have, adrenal fatigue. And so the time of day that you take the adrenal cocktail actually doesn't matter. So that was a really, really good question, Ida, and I'm so glad that you asked that. The important thing about the adrenal cocktail is that it's taken away from food, but it doesn't need to be taken at the exact moment that you are getting morning sunlight in your eyes. So, for instance, somebody who's doing like a 16-8 fast, you could eat, if you find that the adrenal cocktail makes you feel hungry, you could do this. You could eat lunch, and then like a couple hours later, you could take the adrenal cocktail and then you could eat dinner. And so that way it's being taken apart from food, but you're still you're not in a fasted state anymore, so it's not interrupting your fast. But you're, at some point during the day, you're supporting your adrenals long term. So the adrenals run on salt and potassium and vitamin C. And so that the next morning, when you get bright sunlight in your eyes, you're able to make cortisol. And so it's not like a timing thing. And so I totally understand why you asked this, Ida. It's not like a timing thing where your adrenals need that right that moment. It's more of like they've been supported overall. And so we talk about cortisol, like a lot of times it gets mentioned as it's always bad, but cortisol is not always bad. You want some cortisol. It's your natural prednisone. People go on prednisone as an anti-inflammatory, and your body makes its own natural prednisone every single morning. The thing about it is that you want your cortisol at the right time and you want the right amount. So you don't want super high cortisol all day long, just like if someone were to go onto steroids. Cortisol is their natural steroid. If you were to go on steroids, you could have side effects from taking too much too long. So you're wanting this nice, healthy cortisol spike in the morning, and then you're wanting it to kind of fall throughout the day. And you want to make sure that your adrenals are supported. So that's kind of like what your graph should look like. You're right. I don't know if I did it exactly right, but it's rising in the morning and then your cortisol's falling. So by the time you get to nighttime, let's see, I'm going to make it just a little bit more sharp. Okay, this is kind of what I meant to say. Nice, healthy cortisol spike in the morning, and then by the time you get to nighttime, it's like nice and low and you're ready to go to bed, rather than it being like cortisol super low in the morning, and then as the day goes on, it gets higher and higher, and then you're wired by the time you go to bed. Or sometimes people's like, it's just too low, like it's just not getting high, and then it's just like falling off, and then these people are super sleepy about 1 or 2 in the afternoon. So there's all kinds of problems that you can have with cortisol. But if you're supporting your adrenals long term, you can absolutely handle a 72-hour fast. And you don't need necessarily to take the adrenal cocktail every single morning if you find that it makes you hungry. And that's why I stopped recommending it during the fast, because it was making some people hungry. Okay, definitely. Julie wants the title of that second book was Fast, Feast, Repeat. And that is by Jen Stevens. Her last name is spelled Stephens. And there's an audiobook version. And so that's the lighter, more motivational one. So Sean says that she can only get the adrenal cocktail down when she puts it in sparkling water. Yeah, so that's a great way to do it. When my husband does it, for some reason, he thinks it tastes better in hot water. So he'll drink this like hot water with salt and cream of tartar, and he likes that better. So just experiment with some different things. Yeah, so just to give you, Julie's asking for the exact ratios again. It would be a 1/4 teaspoon salt, and it would be 3/4 teaspoon cream of tartar, which is a potassium source. And then vitamin C is the third thing. So your adrenal glands, they hoard vitamin C. And I love this story. This is totally off topic, but I just have to tell this story. You guys probably already know it, but I'm going to tell it anyway. So Weston Price, he is the coolest guy in the world in my mind, who went around studying health and nutrition in different parts of the world in the 1930s when travel wasn't that easy. So he's up in northern Canada and he comes across some Native Americans, and he asks them how they do not get scurvy when the Europeans who were working up there trapping furs and doing various things would always get scurvy. And he asked one of them how they didn't get scurvy through a translator. So the guy said through a translator he was going to go back and ask his chief if he was allowed to tell you. And so he asked his chief, and then he came back, and then the Native American said, well, it's not America, it's Canada, but I think we're using the American as a continent, so you know what I'm saying. The Native person said, my chief told you that I could tell you this, so sit down on a log. You're a friend of our tribe, so I'm allowed to tell you this. So sit down on a log. So Weston Price sits down on a log, and then he goes and gets a dead animal, and he comes back and he shows them the adrenal glands. And he said, we take these little glands and we carefully divide them up through every family, making sure every person gets the exact same amount of this adrenal gland. And it's where the animal concentrates all of its vitamin C, of course. And so he didn't have the vocabulary for the word vitamin C, but he did recognize, sorry, I'm talking about the Native person now, did recognize what scurvy was. And so I love that story because so often Weston Price found that these Native tribes really understood health from an intuitive level so much better than we in all of our scientific hubris understand it. And so here they are, curing scurvy by eating the adrenal glands. But all that to say that your adrenal glands run on vitamin C. So you need to have extra of that in general. And then when they're working well and they've got everything they need, you're totally fine for doing a 72-hour fast. And that you don't need to do the adrenal cocktail if you're doing it. So Sean wrote that you do a 1-to-3 ratio of salt to cream of tartar, and then you mix a batch and keep it in a jar. And that's what I do too. So you could do a 1/4 cup of salt and 3/4 cup of cream of tartar. Mix that in a jar and then just take a teaspoon out. Julie still missed the title. It's Fast, Feast, Repeat. Sean typed it for you. Thank you. And so Ida, about the adrenal cocktail, says she just dissolves a very small amount in water, and then she takes it like a shot and then drinks more water to follow. Okay, I love that, Ida, because I do that with some things too. Rather than making yourself drink like an entire glass that tastes kind of bad, I did that with creatine recently. And creatine, by the way, can be used as a brain food. It's not just for bodybuilders who want to like increase their muscle mass. If you ever are like low on sleep, there's studies that show that creatine can compensate for that, for brain power and stuff. But anyway, I did the same thing. Rather than like making myself to drink a drink this full of creatine, I just like put this much on the bottom. I like just slugged that, and then I followed up with water. I've done that with other things too. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but sometimes it's better to just get that thing over with. So just experiment and see what you like. And Elissa wants me to go over the supplements you recommend to take while fasting. So in general, whatever supplements that you're normally on, you're going to put most of those aside when you're fasting. So if you're taking cod liver oil, no, don't take any cod liver oil. If you're on the spike protein protocol and you're taking ivermectin, okay to stop the ivermectin. It doesn't really dissolve well in your intestines when there's not fat present. So that's why I'm always saying take your ivermectin with a tablespoon of olive oil. That increases intestinal absorption by 4 times. So super important. But in general, almost all of those supplements we're going to put aside. So the exceptions would be, we're going to still take our magnesium if you want to. And I didn't put this on the docket, but I think I should cover real quick. A few people have been asking me about constipation. Just keep taking magnesium until it causes you to go, but go slowly because I don't want you to get like violent diarrhea or anything like that. But a good dose to start with would be about maybe 400 milligrams of magnesium, and then wait. And then a couple hours later, maybe take another 100, 150, depending on what capsules. I have a couple of different kinds of magnesium on hand one of mine is like 100 milligrams per capsule. Another one is 150 milligrams per capsule. So it doesn't matter too much. But just a couple hours later, take another one and see if that causes you to go. And then a couple hours later, take maybe another one or two. And so just keep slowly increasing your magnesium until it causes you to become regular. So magnesium is one that you can take. But if you're not constipated, the normal dose is about 350 to 400 milligrams a day of magnesium. And don't worry too much about getting that exactly right, because your body will, if you take too much, your body will flush it out. So magnesium you can take. If you guys are on the spike protein protocol, you can take nattokinase on an empty stomach. So, but you don't have to, because since we're doing all this fasting, it's going to be doing a lot of the same work that those things do anyway. So up to you whether or not you want to start the nattokinase, keep doing the nattokinase or not. Definitely take salt, and you're going to definitely want to take some charcoal, just to deal with the toxins that are released from your fat stores. So I don't give very specific directions on exactly how much charcoal to take, because it just depends on how you feel. So if you feel a little bit headachy, a little achy, a little brain foggy, then you want to up your charcoal. You can take up to 6 at a time while fasting. And you could take 6 in the morning or 6 at night. Some people, usually the usual dose is like two twice during the day, so 4 total, but you can up that up to 12. So yeah, those are the supplements. So Jerry said that Dr. Berg recommended to take magnesium between 9 and 5 during the day. That's interesting. I'm wondering if he recommended that because magnesium really helps with sleep, but it takes a few hours to really get working. And so rather than taking it right before bed, maybe if you're taking it by 5 p.m., then that's giving it a good like 4 hours to actually get through the body and do its sleep and work. I hadn't heard that from Berg. But I usually, as far as what I do, when I'm not doing an extended fast, I'm just doing my regular life, which is 2 meals a day. I will take all of my supplements with my first meal, which is usually about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I have my first meal, and I just take every one of my supplements right then, um, including my magnesium. So let me see. Sean wanted to know, how often do you take creatine in any particular brand? So I take some creatine every day. The reason, it's super long explanation as to why I take it, but if you have a genetic mutation called MTHFR, your body doesn't process methylfolate well, and the two things that, once you get methylfolate, your body turns 45% of it into creatine and 45% of it into choline. And so in addition to methylfolate, I take creatine and choline every day. And that's just because methylfolate is not super well absorbed in the gut. And if you've ever taken a B vitamin, you might notice that your pee turns bright yellow, like neon yellow, like 3 or 4 hours after you've taken the B vitamin, which shows that not all of it is absorbed. So I'm kind of taking creatine and choline as like my insurance policy. But it is, like I said, it's probably one of the best studied supplements out there. Let me write myself a note. I'm going to drop a link in the follow-up video email to a study called Your Cells Are Starving for Creatine by Chris Masterjohn. That's one of his free articles, because some of his are behind the paywall, and it's pretty short. He can be, super uber nerdy scientist, and sometimes I'll recommend an article of his to people and they're like, I couldn't even make it past the first sentence. Like, he can be really difficult to read, but this particular article on creatine is very easy to understand for him, for his writing. So I'll link to that, and it just gives you an overall understanding of creatine's benefits. So you can get creatine from food. Where you would get it would be from like a steak that's cooked medium rare, because the longer that you cook meat, the more the creatine degrades. So if you're like doing ground beef or something that's cooked really well, you're not going to get as much creatine. That's where creatine comes from in food. But a lot of us are probably not eating like steak every day. Okay. So Jerry says if it upsets your stomach, you can lay down. So Jerry, let's see, were we talking about magnesium or creatine? I'm not sure. Okay, so this is Jerry is saying that I think we're talking about magnesium, that Dr. Bird says magnesium relaxes your esophageal sphincter. So that can create that can create problems at bedtime, so take closer to noon. That's super interesting. Okay, and that would definitely apply to people who have any kind of heartburn, which that used to be my husband, although he's doing so much better than he was. But for him, I have not seen a relationship between him taking magnesium and his acid reflux. But like, he doesn't really take the supplements that I have set out for him, but that's okay. Sometimes he does if I remind him to. But anyway, yeah, so that's super interesting information, Jerry. I like that. I like that. So try taking your magnesium earlier in the day so that this little sphincter at the top of your stomach that's supposed to close, that keeps your stomach acid in there and it keeps it from getting up into the esophageal space. That doesn't become too relaxed because magnesium is a relaxant. That makes total sense. Thank you for sharing that. I've actually never heard that before. You learn something new every day. Okay, so let me look at feel free to ask any more questions. I'm just going to go to another reader question. So a reader asked me what the difference between probiotics and prebiotics, if I would explain that, and if I would, actually, let me just read the question because this is really interesting. Her name is Dr. Maria Oliver. And here's what she said. She said, "Thank you so much for your hard work and your wonderful Substack. I find prebiotics like inulin work so much better than probiotics. What is your opinion about the difference between prebiotics and probiotics?" So super great question. You guys know that I've been recommending you to take probiotics at the end of your fast, which is probably one of the most important things that you could do to make your fast have long-term benefits because you're going to shift your microbiome. So she says that she really finds in her practice, her medical practice, she really likes prebiotics and she finds that they work better. So I haven't had a long conversation with her, but I think what she's hinting at is what I've always said, which is that probiotics, meaning ingesting the bacteria, does not work well if you do not do something else to shift the proportion of bacteria in your gut. And so, like, if you're not doing a fast, which is allowing the bad bacteria to go down in population, it's actually not going to do that much if you just swallow a probiotic pill. However, if you have fasted, so let me just go back over the basics. I hope you guys don't feel like I'm talking about this too often, but I feel like it does help to just hear things repeated. So I heard recently, instead of I'm always dividing the bacteria into two groups. I'm calling it symbiotic, meaning it's beneficial, and then I'm calling it bad bacteria, good and bad. And those categories could actually be expanded to three, which is just a little bit more specific. So it could be good bacteria, beneficial, and then as far as the category of bad bacteria, there's actually kind of two. There's something that we could call opportunistic bacteria, and then there's something that we would call a pathogen that would like put you in the hospital. So this is just getting more into the nitty gritty. I think that in general, I'm still going to use the term good and bad bacteria, but to be super, super specific, in the category of negative, there's actually a pathogen where if you get in your gut, it's like you have like C. diff, like you're actually going to the hospital with a pathogen. And then the other kind is more opportunistic, which means it's pretty benign in small amounts, but it's not beneficial. So it's not giving you these small chain fatty acids, which promote health. It's not giving you the health benefits that the symbiotic stuff does, but it's not going to put you in the hospital. And in small amounts, it's pretty benign. But opportunistic means that when it overgrows, first of all, it's crowding out all the healthy bacteria that does things like synthesizes B vitamins for you, like actually makes B vitamins. That's what the beneficial bacteria does. So if you're low on and like I said, B vitamins are not well absorbed through a pill, although there's nothing wrong with taking it and taking a B vitamin and trying to get some in there. But what really works well is when you have a B vitamin factory living in your gut and it's making teeny little amounts day in and day in and day out, and then your intestine is constantly able to be absorbing little amounts of B vitamins rather than you taking a B vitamin pill and it's like whoosh, here's all these B vitamins, most of them can't be absorbed, pee them out. So the main problem with opportunistic bacteria is that it's crowding out. It's not so much that it's so dangerous that you have to go to the hospital, but it's crowding out the actual beneficial ones. And so I just kind of wanted to give you that framework just so that you understood it is even a little bit more nuanced than just good and bad. It's like good and bad and terrible. But I think what Dr. Oliver is telling me is she's just saying, just taking a probiotic is not necessarily going to do anything to shift because the opportunistic bacteria have settled in and they have what was the word that I was using? They have an establishment. They have established themselves in the gut. But here's a principle that you need to remember, which is that all of the negative opportunistic bacteria are heavily, heavily dependent on carbs and sugar, whereas the beneficial bacteria can use protein, they can use fatty acids, and they're much more resilient. So 72-hour fast is awesome because you're shifting that in your gut. And I read recently from this website called the Cultured Food Life. Let me write yourself a note. I want to link to this website in Cultured Food Life in the follow-up notes for this video because there's so many good recipes and stuff in there. But she said, she's like a researcher about the gut health. She said there are more probiotics in 1 tablespoon of sauerkraut than a whole bottle of probiotics. Okay, isn't that crazy, you guys? And even more important than that, the sauerkraut has little tiny areas where the beneficial bacteria can hide and in like the cabbage itself, and so that it can make it through the stomach and actually make it into the small intestine without all of the good bacteria dying. So having said that, don't rely completely on a probiotic pill. Now, there's nothing wrong with taking the probiotic pill. In addition, and you guys know that I'm taking the Bifido pill because of me feeling like my immunity hasn't been as great since I had my last round of COVID, and I'm afraid that my Bifido bacteria got really compromised. So I'm doing both, but I'm also doing sauerkraut. I'm also doing so much kefir every day. Jerry asked for a kind of yogurt to buy, help breaking the fast. I go for the organic brands. I've used Nancy's, is at our local health food store. I've used Stonyfield. But if you really want to go for the big guns, you guys really need to make your own because there's just not that much in the store-bought stuff. Sean said that Bubby's is great if you don't make your own. Okay, so is Bubby's a brand of yogurt, Sean? I've not heard of that brand. When you make your own, it just has so much more. But also just really do the sauerkraut. That's just a really, really good way. And sauerkraut does not need to be homemade. I like to look for an organic, naturally fermented one. So make sure you're getting a good store-bought sauerkraut. And then also I have a wonderful married daughter who makes her own sauerkraut and she gives me that. So it's so cool. My married kids are like doing things like health food things like way beyond even what I'm doing. And I'm just like, you guys go, you're so cool. Oh, Bubby's is a sauerkraut. Thank you, Vicky. Okay, I didn't know if we were talking about yogurt. That makes a lot more sense. Bubby's does not sound like the name of yogurt, but it totally sounds like a sauerkraut. Okay, so look for Bubby's, you guys. Awesome. Thank you so much for that recommendation. Okay, so let me go back to the question of probiotic versus prebiotic. So to answer the question, either or, should I do probe, should I do pre? The answer is do all of the above. So what does the word prebiotic mean? That word means that there's no live bacteria in a prebiotic, but it's a food for bacteria. Oh, and Sean also got some homemade sauerkraut from her wonderful daughter. And Robin says, if you can't make your own yogurt, Alexander Family Farm has an A2A2 100% grass-fed yogurt is a good choice. I love that. I love that so much. And that A2A2 is referring to the kind of protein that the cow makes, and it's a genetic it's a genetic I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, certain kinds of genes cause the milk protein in the cow to be a certain kind of protein that is easier for the human digestive tract to handle. And so an A1 protein is more difficult, and it has to do with the way that the cows are bred. And Sean said that Bellwether Farms A2 organic whole milk yogurt can be found at Costco stores. Okay, so local people, we have a Costco that we can hike to. We have to drive to it, but yeah. So if anybody is find that they have a hard time with dairy, you should try A2 protein. And the reason why it's sometimes said A2A2 means that we have like two genes. So the cow could have like an A2 gene and an A1 gene. And that means that the milk would have a mixture of the two different kinds of protein. But if it's listed on the label as A2A2, so they list that twice, which is weird. And you're like, why are they saying it twice? They're saying that genetically the cow has both of its genes are A2. So it wasn't like one parent was A2 and one parent was A1, so that the proteins in the milk are going to be the easily digestible kind. And then if you still have trouble with milk, you can always get goat milk. And for local people, we have a raw goat milk farm, of course, that's awesome here. And then that protein it won't be listed as A2 because all of the goat protein is naturally very easy to digest, and it's closer to human protein in its composition. But the A2 cow protein also is too. So those are kind of some things to consider. So yeah. So just to go back to the word prebiotic, PRE. So that's referring to some kind of food that your healthy bacteria lives off of. And Dr. Oliver, who messaged me, she likes to use one called inulin. That's spelled Inulin. Inulin is a good option because it is not a food that any of those opportunistic bacteria really prefer to eat. So you're going to be feeding the beneficial without feeding everything at once. Whereas more general things like just eating a lot of salad or whatever is just going to feed everything in equal proportions, which is not to say that you shouldn't eat salad. It's just to say that I love eating salad. I eat salad every day. But don't think of that as feeding your good bacteria, not your bad. It feeds everything equally. Whereas something like inulin really gives your good bacteria some food. Inulin is pretty inexpensive. It's pretty tasteless. So what you could do at the end of your fast when you're having sauerkraut and your prebiotics and stuff is go ahead and put like a small amount. You should probably start with something like a fourth or an eighth teaspoon into a drink or food or yogurt or whatever it is, and mix that in. And then that will be a little bit of food for your healthy bacteria to just kind of encourage it to grow and hopefully outgrow the more negative bacteria. So just be careful with how much you take because it can give you some intestinal discomfort as your bacteria in your gut is shifting. You might feel a little bloated or something like that. So be a little bit careful with prebiotics, but it's really not a question of are we in the camp of prebiotics or are we in the camp of probiotics? Let's just be in the camp of let's just do it all. Like inulin is inexpensive. We can take a little inulin. We can, and the thing I love about sauerkraut is that you are giving yourself bacteria and you're giving yourself the food that the bacteria likes in the cabbage itself. Like that's why the bacteria has grown so much in the cabbage because it eats the cabbage, and so you're giving yourself a prebiotic and a probiotic at once when you eat the sauerkraut. So just yeah, that would be something that I wouldn't skip. Like if you're doing the Bifido Pro or another like probiotic that you are swallowing, don't think that that's instead you have to do the sauerkraut too. And if you don't like sauerkraut, I'm sorry. you're going to have to like it. If it's the first thing that you eat when you break your fast, I promise you, you will start to like sauerkraut. But a note about heating it up. So my husband doesn't like sauerkraut when it's cold straight from the fridge. So if your family is like that, make sure you only warm it to like room temperature or tiny bit warm. Because if you actually like heat it up, like stick in the microwave and zap it, then you're going to kill all the probiotics, all the healthy bacteria. So I'll put mine in a saucepan on super low, and I'll just like stick my finger in there. And when it's kind of warm, then I'll be like, okay, here you go. So don't heat your sauerkraut over too much, and don't put it in the microwave, because the microwave will kill the sweet little bacteria that we want to keep alive, that we need. Okay, next question that I want to talk about real quick. I got a question about, what if you have a family member that feels kind of unsure about what you're doing? So this is how I would deal with this. First of all, don't put any pressure on your spouses. Of course, Ida has a wonderful husband who's fasting with her, but don't put any pressure on them to do this with you. Let them watch you and let them see that you're enjoying yourself and you're not dying, and that you feel good, and that you feel good after, and you have all these health benefits. Just let them watch you do that without you being like, and you're, oh, sure, you're eating all these foods. Like, in general, that's just been my principle. We've changed a lot. Like, I no longer buy any chips, and my husband absolutely loves corn chips, but it's just like a joke now. Like, when I have like chili or something, he'll be like, "Where's the chips?" But he's not really mad at me. It's just kind of a joke. But like, everything that we've done has been like very incremental, meaning it wasn't like very confrontational. It wasn't like me being like naggy, or it was just like things kind of like happened where like all of a sudden the chips just disappeared from the house. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, you need to lead by example, and you need to not be annoying, and you need to not be naggy. And um, one thing that I found is to not like overplay your hand as far as going on and on about the health benefits, but like just very simply drop saying little things about it. Like, after you break your fast, just say something like, "I can't believe how good I feel when I eat now, because I don't have carb cravings any longer." Or just say little things that let the people in your life know that this was a positive thing, that you didn't ruin your metabolism. And it doesn't have to be like this huge, long scientific explanation where everyone's like yawning and they're really bored by the end of it. It can just be like 2 or 3 sentences where you're like, "Oh, I read this cool thing today that said that fasting actually increases your metabolic rate, whereas all other kinds of diets decrease your metabolic rate." Like one sentence, and then that's it. So just be kind of strategic about that. But obviously, if they're asking you for information, like, "No, why are you doing this again?" That's fine. But just don't like bombard them with too much information. But like, I'll be reading a book. Like, say you're reading um, my Mattson. There we go. My brain was glitching for a second there. Mark Mattson's book, Intermittent Fasting Revolution. I don't think there's anything wrong with like stopping for a second, being like, "Hey, can I read you this sentence?" And then your spouse is like, "Oh, that's so cool," or whatever. But you don't want to be like, "Sit down and I'm going to read you these 3 pages," or whatever. So just kind of play it cool, and drop little hints about how good you're feeling and the benefits you're having, without being heavy-handed about it, and without making them feel guilty that they're not doing it, and without like trying to pressure them into doing it. Because when they see how good you're feeling and your benefits, maybe they'll want to join you, and maybe they won't. So just be open-handed about that, and don't have a heavy hand. Okay, so let's see. Let me look at my outline. Refeeding reminders. This is something really important. The longer you guys fast, the longer you have to refeed. So what that means is that when you're just doing a 36-hour fast, 36/40, sometimes people do, you only have one up day. So what this would look like is Monday would be a down day. That means no food. And Tuesday is an up day. And there's a few of you who are doing the 3 fasts a week, 3 36-hour fasts a week. So that looks like you don't eat Monday, you don't eat Wednesday, you don't eat Friday. And then you eat at least 2 and possibly 3 meals on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so that's the schedule. So one down day and one up day. Now, when you do a 72-hour fast, it's completely different. You have 3 down days in a row. And then that down day just means no food or, no calories. So don't think of it as like a downer. Think of it as the scale going down, okay? And your inches around the middle going down. Oh, let me stop really quick and say, please, 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 if you didn't do it last night, measure your stomach and then measure again on Wednesday before you eat. And make sure your stomach is relaxed and you find the largest part and you measure really carefully. And then let us know in the group chats how much inches you guys lost. Okay, so when you do a 72-hour fast, you're going to follow it by 4 up days. Okay, so you do 3 down days, you're going to do 4 up days. What do I mean by 4 up days? I mean, you are not going to do any fasting on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday of this week. Now, what does it mean not to do any fasting? It means that you need to eat at least 2 and maybe 3 meals. Now, I don't make everybody eat 3 meals because if you wake up in the morning and you don't want to eat till 11 and you eat at 11, you eat a really big meal and you eat a big meal for dinner, that's fine. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to have an update on Thursday. So you're going to eat a meal on Wednesday night. Okay. You're going to have an update on Thursday. And then you don't want to be like, okay, now Friday, I'm going to go back to doing OMAD 1 meal a day, or I'm going to start another 36-hour fast, or I'm going to blah, blah, blah. No, 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 no. This is super important, you guys. You have to eat for 4 days. You have to eat at least 2 meals. And this is your refeeding time. And this is a time where you're telling your body, like, we did this really long fast, but we're not actually in a famine. We're not in starvation mode. We're going to rebuild. You're going to break down a lot of like old tissue that was damaged. And now during the next 4 days of refeeding, you're going to rebuild. Now, this is not like 4 days of like binging and eating like Doritos and ice cream and whatever, but you're going to eat high protein meals and you're going to eat to full satiety. Now, if you wake up on any of those days, Thursday through Sunday, and you feel hungry in the morning, I want you to allow yourself to eat breakfast because we're not technically fasting. Okay. And this is what I say teenagers to. People say, can my teenager fast? I'm like, in general, I don't want teenagers fasting who are growing very rapidly. But does that mean they have to eat breakfast the second they wake up in the morning? No, they might have been eating pizza till midnight the night before, so that if they don't feel like eating till 10 a.m., that's fine. But that's not fasting when you just don't feel like eating till 10 a.m. Fasting is like you feel like eating, but you tell yourself keep going until a certain time. And so that's what I don't want you doing Thursday through Sunday is I don't want you making yourself fast. So what that means is that you don't have to eat the second that your feet hit the floor. But if you feel hungry, I want like a kind of like belly hunger, which you probably are Thursday morning. I want you to go ahead and eat breakfast. And I know that's weird because you're like, wait a second, I have this whole fasting routine. I haven't eaten breakfast for I don't know how long. I don't know about this. So I want you to be intuitive about it. But like I said, if you wake up and you genuinely have like a real kind of belly hunger, I want you to go ahead and not fast and eat Thursday through Sunday, more like what a normal person does because you're refeeding. So I'm using this term belly hunger, and this kind of goes back into what I was saying when I was doing my outline about fasting allows you to become a more intuitive person. So before we were fasters, we might not have ever really experienced real hunger on a daily basis. And that means that our liver glycogen, which is kind of like our refrigerator, was always full. And so we would have something called snacky hunger, which is like a blood sugar drop because we were so used to having like constant glucose in our blood and we're completely dependent on glucose. Our cells didn't know how to burn fat. Our brain didn't know how to burn ketones. And so then our blood sugar goes down the tiniest bit and then we're like carbs. And so we're on this whole carb roller coaster, and we felt like a snacky hunger, but we never really experienced true hunger. So I want you to pay attention, to get into a state of being very intuitive about how you feel. And the next 4 days are going to be a really, really good time for you to learn to do that. And so you should have, if any of you had leptin resistance, which probably all of us have had that for some degree, that's going to be really healed through the 72-hour fast. I've talked about this before, but briefly, I'll just say I'm not talking about insulin resistance, which also is healed through fasting, but leptin is a sensor that tells you that you're full and that you don't need any more food. And when you have leptin constantly circulating in your body, your brain doesn't hear it or recognize it anymore. So after you go on a long 72-hour fast, you'll probably find that one of these meals later on in the week, you're going to serve yourself this giant plate of food, and you're going to be like, oh, this is so great. I get to eat. And you're going to eat half of it. And you're all of a sudden going to feel like, I can't take another bite. And so just like we never really experienced true hunger before we were fasting, we very few of us experienced what it means to be truly full. And so I want you to pay attention to that, to slow down and look for that cue that says, I don't need any more. And the thing that I love about overcoming leptin resistance is that in the old days, I don't know that I ever really felt full and satisfied after a meal. I think I just stopped because I was like, well, I ate 2 plates. I probably should stop. But there was no like intuitive signals telling me to stop. And so I think one of the things that's been so cool about fasting is to actually be that person who can't finish the food on my plate, because I've never in my life been that person, and I'm like looking askance, like squinty eyed across the table at this like little 120-pound girl who's like, I can't finish my food. I'm like, what's wrong with you? You know, like, because I just didn't understand what it was like to feel actually full. And so it's going to feel weird, but I want you guys to pay attention to that and not like blow past it, because it's actually really good to sit down at a meal and eat to the point that you're like comfortably satisfied. And that's so much cooler than when we used to have to be on like Weight Watchers or some weird diet where we had to like measure out our food and like make yourself stop, but you really wish you could still keep eating. If you can like tap back into your signals that when they're working well, they work perfectly, and your body tells you exactly how much you need. And especially if you're eating enough protein, your body will tell you like, we've had enough food and we're full and we're satisfied. So pay attention to that. Pay attention to your hunger signals, Thursday through Sunday. And if you're hungry for a meal, eat a meal. Now don't snack, but like sit down and eat something with protein and healthy animal fats like eggs and meat and something like that. Cheese, olives, vegetables with butter on it. Like allow yourself to eat really well Thursday through Sunday, and pay attention to when you're full. Sean Cernick said that Bellwether Farms A2 organic whole milk yogurt can be. Okay, I already read that. Okay. Elissa said, if you're local to Moscow, I have extra homemade sauerkraut from my home. Oh my goodness. Okay. That is so cool. From her home grown purple cabbages. I will give you a jar. Thank you, Elissa. That is so cool. Um, yes. I'm trying to think of, okay, other local people can just contact you, because I think everybody local on this call knows how to contact you. And we also have, Elissa, you could also put that in our Facebook group. We have a local fasting Facebook group. That is so cool. I think you should. Okay, if you're taking some of Elissa's sauerkraut, give her a little donation. But thank you for that. Jerry said a lot of lactose intolerant people can drink A2 milk. Yeah, so lactose intolerance is a little bit different. So sometimes people, when they don't tolerate dairy products well, they use this term lactose intolerant, and it's being very unspecific to say I don't tolerate milk. But there's actually a couple of different reasons why you could not tolerate milk, and it could be because you're reacting to the lactose. So remember, OSC at the end of a word means a kind of sugar, or you're reacting to the protein. And a lot of times people don't know which one it is. But so lactose is a kind of sugar that cannot be used unless it's converted to glucose. Okay, so glucose is the kind of sugar that our cells use, and lactose is what's in milk. And you need an enzyme called lactase. So ASE at the end of the word obviously always means enzyme. You need that enzyme lactase to convert lactose to glucose so that your body can use it. And if you don't do that, then it gives you really bad gastrointestinal problems. Now, some people's bodies can make enough of the enzyme lactase on their own, but there's a lot of different chemical processes that are involved in making um, lac- lactase. Okay. And you may or may not be able to make enough, or you might lack the genetic enzyme. And there's all these different factors. However, if you ever drink raw milk has the lactase in it. So it has the enzyme in it that allows you to digest the lactose. And so nobody is lactose intolerant if they're drinking raw milk because they have the enzyme. So anyway, all that to say, so that's just lactose intolerance is a slightly different problem than reacting to the protein and not being able to break down the protein, or having like an immune response to A1 proteins sometimes. So there's kind of two different things. So you want to get raw milk, and then you also want the raw milk to be A2. So yeah, there's a lot of things to think about when you're thinking about milk. Greg Robbins said that a zero carb cheese crackers are easy to make at home, and they're great foil for dipping your favorite low carb chips. Yeah, so I have made those before, and what I did was I took muffin tins, and then I just sprinkled some shredded cheese at the bottom of the muffin tins. Sometimes I've done like mix different kinds. Like it's kind of fun to mix like shredded Parmesan with shredded cheddar, but anything you want. Put it in the muffin tin, put the muffin tin, like maybe like that much shredded cheese at the bottom, put the muffin tin in the oven. I don't remember how much I did, 350, 400, doesn't matter. Bake it until it's crispy. Can't go wrong. Love those so much. Jennifer said with 3 36-hour fasts, so Monday, Wednesday, Friday, up days, what should Sunday look like? Super great question. So people always wonder that because, Saturday is the up day following Friday. So of course you up day. So I have people usually do just 2 up days in a row. But you don't have to do that. You could do anything you want on Sunday. Like you could do a 16/8 because you don't have to do another up day. But I usually just tell people to do 2 up days in a row. One other thing that you could possibly do for Friday is, sorry, not for Friday, but for Saturday, is you could push your Saturday fast a little longer. So instead of doing a 36-hour fast that goes from Thursday night to Saturday morning, you could go to more like Saturday noon or even Saturday night and make it a 48-hour fast, or 46-hour, 45, whatever. And then you could eat Saturday night and then eat all day Sunday. And the only reason why sometimes people like to do that is because they get um, they don't like having the 2 up days in a row, and it kind of makes them nervous that they're going to overeat or whatever. And so then it makes Saturday a little bit less than a little less of an up day, and then Sunday can be more of like a full up day. When I was doing losing my weight and doing my 3 36-hour fast a week, I sometimes like to do that because we always have a really big family dinner on Saturday night. And so it was just kind of fun to to wait. But I would break sometimes Saturday afternoon, because then I'd be kind of like prepping my stomach and like sort of tasting the food that I was cooking and everything like that. And then that allowed me to make Sunday a full up day. But you don't have to do that. That's just an idea or a suggestion. You can just do 2 up days in a row, Saturday and Sunday up days. So yeah. Let me look. I have another question. Thank you for covering this. Okay, so Elissa put her cell on there if you'd like any of her homemade sauerkraut. So cool. Greg says that he made the crackers in a well-seasoned carbon steel skillet. Wow. Um, Is that a cast iron skillet? Is that the same thing? No, he says carbon steel, so that's not going to be the same thing. That sounds really cool. So I'm assuming, Greg, that you just poured like little circles of shredded cheese, or like maybe you, I don't know. I mean, you guys could like Google it or go to YouTube and find like all the sweet cheese crackers recipes. It sounds really great. Um, I think that is all I have. Let me look through my notes really quick. And I think, oh, I wanted to tell you guys to do a lymph massage. I think I mentioned this in another video, but there's like a 6-step process of like you have to start here and then you go here and then you go to like your stomach, because lymph fluid doesn't have a circulatory system like your heart beats blood throughout your body, and your lymph doesn't have a way to self-circulate. And when you're fasting for a long time, especially 72 hour, you're releasing toxins from your fat stores, and I don't want them to accumulate in your lymph nodes and just sit there. So you need to do a lymph massage, and um, you need to do it ideally each day, so you have extra time when you're not eating and cooking to do a lymph massage. And I will drop a video. I know I put this in other posts, I think, but I'll drop another video, a link to the lymph massage that just shows you how to do it, because it is kind of important that you do it right and you do it in the right order. But you just want to get those toxins out, draining out of your body, and not just like hanging around. So that's the reason to do the lymph massage. Also, if you have a red light, that's fasting is just a good time. This goes back to what I've said in other videos, where you think of your fast as kind of like a spa treatment. You're getting renewed on the inside and the outside. So taking a detox bath in baking soda and Epsom salts is a good thing to do. Sitting in front of your red light. If you get cold, which you might get cold, go ahead and just dress more warmly or stick a winter hat on your head. Um, you can rub magnesium oil on your body. Greg said that cast iron works too. 1 tablespoon of grated Parmesan topped with other grated cheese, and they get bubbly and crispy on the edges. So yeah, I love that you said that, because now I'm gonna try the skillet, the skillet thing too. So this is all something that we can look forward to. All of us on Thursday are going to be, maybe Wednesday night, sitting there making our little bubble cheese crackers, because when you're fasting, food just sounds so good, doesn't it? Just sounds so good right now. Um, but yeah, so my little, muffin tin method is a little bit more passive. Stick it in there and let it cook. But I like this method of like putting it onto the cast iron and just like watching it bubble up and make these wonderful little cheese crackers. Tammy, acupuncture is not something that I have studied a lot, not because I don't believe in it, but just because I haven't gotten around to studying it. So I don't really know about acupuncture and fasting, but I will tell you guys that one thing I do is I like to use some of the AI engines as a research tool. Now, it's really important that you don't look at the AI engines as being like the ultimate word on truth. It's a tool to help you with research and to pull up studies for you. So what I would do is I think as far as medical things, I'm tending to use Grok lately. So you go onto Twitter, and just over on the left hand bar, there's a little button that says Grok, and you open it up and you just type anything in there. So you could type in, show me some medical studies that talk about acupuncture while fasting, and just see what it pulls up. So like I said, don't consider the AI to be the last word on everything. Depending on what engine you use, if you ask it, is butter good for me? It's probably going to say butter is not good for you, because it's pulling information from the mainstream medical journals, which are all bought and paid for by big pharma and big food. So obviously the AI engine is only as good as the data that it's pulling from. So you can't trust it on a lot of things, but you can use it as a research tool, and it might be able to pull up an article for you about acupuncture and fasting. So when somebody asks me a question, someone asked me this morning about a medication that their wife was on, and whether or not she could do it while fasting. And so medication is not something I know anything about, because I haven't been to medical school, and it's not really something that I plan to ever really study, because I'm going to leave that to the doctors. I don't yeah, and just not into medication. But what I did was I opened up Grok and I said, can you find me any information about, put in the name of the medication and then its interaction with fasting, like just what's the research. So like I said, you don't trust it implicitly as something that knows everything, but if it pulls up an article for you, anyway, you can just read that article. So that is how I use Grok. So after the 72-hour fast, do we pick up the alternate day fasting? Okay, super great question, Julie. So this is why things are kind of confusing, is because I had said to you guys in the in the past that fasting doesn't work super well as a weight loss strategy if it's not in the larger context of an intermittent fasting lifestyle, meaning someone does a 72-hour fast and they go back to eating exactly the same way that they did. They'll eventually gain back their weight and eventually undo a lot of the weight loss that they did. So in the larger context of your life, like for the context of the rest of this month, you want to go back to your regular fasting routine. However, the next 4 days after your fast are special days. So you're not going to go back to alternate day fasting. You're not going to go back to OMAD. You're not going to go back to 18-6. Like whatever fasting that you do on a regular basis, you're not going to do for the rest of this week. So you want to think of this entire week as a fast feast cycle. So it's the whole week. It's the first 3 days are a fast and the next 4 days are a feast. And that is, it's a separate unit that is completely separate from any other fasting that you're doing. Now come Monday, that's when you get to pick up whatever kind of fasting schedule you normally do. Do you do the 336s a week? Then that's going to start a week from today. Do you usually do OMAD? Do you usually do 18-6? Whatever you do, you're going to start that next week. But all that's going to be put on hold because of doing the down day update pattern. So, by the way, and all of this information about how you structure like 72-hour fast followed by refeeding. I get all of this from Jason Fung. So in his practice, and he publishes like what he teaches. And so in his practice, he uses 72-hour fast for both weight loss and for like PCOS, type 2 diabetes, all that kind of stuff. And so he's the one who teaches you do the 72-hour fast and then you do 4 days of refeeding. And then you might do you could go back to doing your alternate day fasting or whatever you want to do next week. So I hope that cleared that up because that is confusing. Yeah, so I'm about to sign off, but I just wanted to see if I had any other follow-up questions. And let me look through my notes really quick and make sure that I covered everything. Make sure that you eat nice and high protein this week. Lymph massage, I covered that. Make sure you watch the video about Mindy Pell's. Yeah, I think that's all that I plan to cover. So if there's no more further questions, we will go ahead and sign off. Let's see, just making sure that I got to everything. Yeah. All right. Oh, is this the last Monday live? Yeah. So Wendy, I know I talked about doing a live possibly tomorrow morning. And oh, I know what you're saying. It's us a Monday live. So I'm so glad you asked that because I have not covered that and I didn't put in my notes. So my plan going forward is I would like to do a live every single Monday. And what I would like to do is I would like to lead you guys through a 36-hour fast every single Monday. And once a month, turn that into a 72 like we're doing today. So next 3 weeks will be 36-hour fasts again, and I will do the live Monday morning to kind of kick off the 36-hour fast. So that's my plan. Something might come up. I do have a married daughter and her kids living with me, so there's a chance that something could come up where I can't do it. But my plan is to do this every Monday morning. To do the group chat Sunday night to Tuesday, the fasting group chat, so that people can ask questions there, and to keep doing the 36 to 40 hour fast. And then, yeah, once a month, we'll do the 72. Now, if you have really, really severe spike protein disease, you might want to do two 72-hour fasts a month. So obviously, I won't be like doing the group support for that, but just feel free to keep going as you are able. But yeah, that my plan is to keep doing this every Monday, 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern. I finally got the time zones figured out. Yeah, so okay, well, signing off, and we will see. I had talked about possibly doing a Tuesday morning and a Wednesday morning live during the 72-hour fast. I'm not planning on doing that unless I get a lot of questions that I feel like I need to talk through. But right now, I feel like you guys are equipped. I feel like I was able to say everything that I needed to say. So unless I get a ton of new questions, I won't be doing a live tomorrow morning or Wednesday morning. But if I do end up doing one, I will send you guys an email, and I will also put it on the group chat that I'm going live tomorrow morning. But as of right now, I don't really have enough material that I think I need to cover. So, all right, signing off. It was great to see you guys. Bye.